Hi there, I'm Pete, and we're back. This is my boat. I couldn't remember exactly where I left off with the video. Whoops. So I wanted to document where we are so far. I know I probably skipped a lot of steps with the video. I'm documenting this build with video, with Picasa pictures. There's an iBoats forum conversation and a boatdesign.com conversation going on, and trying to maintain all those different forms of documentation has proven to be a bit of a challenge. Anyhow, so I wanted to show on video what we have so far, and that's the transom. That's the new transom that's made with 2 layers of Home Depot premium 3/4 inch ply with a layer of 1/2 inch kind of, I forget what they call it, sheathing grade in the middle, and learned a hard lesson about not using home builder, builder grade wood. I should have used marine grade wood, because there are voids in there, water will get in there, and it will rot much faster than if it was a marine grade ply. So, lesson learned, took my lumps, but I'm not going to stop now. Anyway, that ply is laminated together with what's called Loctite PL premium adhesive. Comes in a little caulk tube. I don't know, it's like $8 a tube. Anyway, the PL, and you layer it out like you put like floor cement in with a notch trowel to get a smooth distribution of the adhesive, and then you squeeze another layer of plywood on top of that, PL adhesive plywood. And what I did was, the reason why there's a million holes in it, I don't know if you can see all those holes, is that when I laid up the plywood, I actually drilled a bunch of holes all the way through. And some of those holes were for squeezing out of the adhesive. Some of those holes were for screws. I actually held the whole assembly together overnight with screws to get a good compression on the plywood, and I got a pretty good compression, but the problem is I didn't get enough. The PL adhesive ended up being thicker than I wanted because I set it up in the evening. We're in Colorado, so the evening was kind of cool. It didn't get as much flow, so my transom got thicker than I had planned. So anyway, so that was how I built up the transom. I put a bevel on the edge to make a smooth transition of glass from the transom down into the hull, and I also put, let me see if I can get a better shot of this. There's a pretty fat radius right here. I think I have about a 1/2 inch radius to make a smooth transition for the glass to go over when it finally gets installed. But as you can see, at least I hope you can see, I got good squeeze out here all along the top. There's a layer of chopped stranded mat between here and the hull, and that chopped stranded mat was heavily wetted. In other words, I used a lot of adhesive, a lot of epoxy resin, wetted that mat real good. I mean, I mixed up a whole 16 ounces just for that, and I even have, as you can see, seep out through some of these holes, which that's really good. That's what we want. And all on the bottom there's some that flowed out, which is all fine. That's all we want. We want to make sure that the transom got a good bond to the hull, and I wanted that bond to be as thin as possible because, like I said before, when I laid up the transom with PL, the transom got a little bit thicker than I wanted. Oh, I also used a backing board that's right over there. We'll get to that thing in a minute. That's cut roughly to shape. That is also 3/4 ply that I screwed right to the outside of the hull. So I had this thing clamped, screwed right through the hull to that backing board to get a really good squeeze, and I just let it set overnight. Okay, so that's how we got the transom into place. Of course, you want to clean off all the old whatever you have, adhesive, glass. Well, you don't have to clean off the glass is there, but you want to clean off all the old adhesive, whatever grease is still there, etc., etc. And I also cut back my stringers. these are the stringers. I cut those back a little bit to give myself a lot of room to get my hands in there and get working. And you know, so that's why I cut those back. They're just hollow. Well, this one has foam in it. They're just hollow fiberglass. There's a little bit of wood on top that runs. There's a little strip of wood, less than ½ inch, to I'm sure act as a former. And when I rebuild the end of those stringers, I'll probably use a similar construction method. Also, you'll see that I have at least my engine mounts partially in. Now, if you recall, the way the engine mounts used to be, they used to be in this footprint. There was just a block here, just about a 9x9 block right here, and same thing over here. There was just a block. So there was a block here, and the same thing on the other side. And there was a bulkhead right here. So that's how the construction used to be. Well, the bulkhead I took out because, well, it was rotten, for one. And secondly, this engine that I'm putting in is not the same engine that I'm taking out. The engine that I took out is a 3-liter 4-cylinder that, of course, you know, and it was an OMC, so it was mounted there, and there to those blocks that were, of course, laminated to the stringers, to the floor, to the hull, blah, blah, blah. The engine I'm putting in is 6 inches longer. Oh, it's more like 4.5 inches longer, but I put a little bit extra in there. It's 80 pounds heavier, and it's about 25 more horsepower, 20 to 25 more horsepower, and it's a Merc. So Merc only mounts up front and directly to the transom. There's no rear mounting on the Merc. But I think I can't decide if I'm going to cut these beams, you know, say here, just behind the footprint of the old block. Cut them here, get rid of all this, and laminate that to the deck or to the stringers, or to just leave them the way they are and laminate that whole thing to the stringers. That's a lot of weight. It's about 30 pounds extra weight, but we're also talking about a heavier, more powerful engine too. So I'm on the fence about what I'm going to do about those mounts just yet. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, so once I figure it out, we'll figure it out. Stand by. Okay, so I just hopped out. Let's have a look at what we've done back here. So this is the OMC hole. Now I'm going to a Merc, so this hole needed to be filled in with fiberglass up to the level of the existing hull. And as you can see, I'm actually pretty much there. See if I can get a... Excuse me. That's my first mate there. I'm going to see if I can get a shot just at... I mean, it's real close. Real close. I have my... we'll call this my straight-ish edge. This is just a piece of aluminum that's supposed to be a transition for flooring. It's up against the hull here on both sides, and yeah, this is pretty flush. Pretty flush. I'm going to call that probably flush enough. So how did I do this? Well, I had a piece of foam project board that I'm looking for now. I don't have it. You can get them at Home Depot or Office Depot or whatever. And I cut it to the size of this hole. And then I used that as a pattern to cut many layers of chopped stranded mat. I lost count of how many layers of CSM I have on there. I think I have upwards of 20 on there. Took me 3 events, 3 different layerings to get it up there just right. So once I got it built up with a lot of epoxy to roughly the layer of the surrounding hull, I just simply added 2 more layers. Okay, 2 more layers of chopped stranded mat, just rolled it out, got it real wet. As you can see, there's a lot of leakage, a lot of goop on the floor, but it needed to be real wet, because then I used this backing board again. I just did this last night. I used this backing board again with just a piece of plastic. That's all this is just just a piece of plastic that I taped to the board, and since this board already had holes drilled through it, I just poked, with a razor knife, poked through, because I wanted this to squeeze down, and I wanted some of the epoxy to squeeze out, and I wanted this to be as flat as possible. So I taped the plastic to the board, poked some holes in it, and screwed in 2 places directly all the way through the board from the outside right into my transom. As you can see, I got a couple little holes right there, not a big deal. But the end result is that I got a pretty flat surface here, and it's pretty level, and it's squeezed out pretty good. And I am going to have to do some filling around the edges here, because my mats, when I was cutting my mats, I found out it was much better to cut them just a little bit smaller and get them in there flat and true than it was to cut them bigger and end up having to grind all this off again and again and again and again. So I have a little gap here, all around here. It's not a big deal. The main result is we got a pretty level, flat surface right here, and that is glued directly to the wood transom on the inside. So all I'll have to do is some sanding here, some filling here, and then the outside of this thing is going to be done. By the way, you can see a bunch of holes that are all the way through the hull. Are you helping? Yeah? Okay. You got a bunch of holes that are all the way through the hull, and that's okay, because I'm going to have to gel coat this whole thing, or at least the red portion. In fact, I don't think you should be playing with that. Kids shouldn't play with epoxy, should they? I actually drilled all the way through here at one point. So anyway, I'm going to have to gel coat the whole thing. So I'm going to, grind, smooth out all these holes. I'm going to squirt 5200 or 5100 or whatever that stuff is in it, and sand it all down. I'm just going to have to gel coat the whole thing, at least the red portion, and then patch, put a little patch over there where this tiny little hole is. So let's see, I think that's it. That's what I've got so far anyway. The transom is in. The transom plug is almost done. It looks good. There's a lot of resin in there. I think I mixed up, let's see, that's almost a half gallon of resin in there, and like I said, probably close to 20 layers of those chopped stranded mat plugs that I cut for that thing. It took a long time. It took a lot of resin, and that thing probably now weighs twice as much as it did when it came from the factory. So that's pretty funny, huh? Right? Is that funny? Yeah. Anyhow, that's what I got so far. Oh, by the way, I'll be updating my, I have an iBoats thread, I think I told you that already, and a boat design thread. Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? Does it knock? Does it knock? Yeah, sure does. I'll be updating those threads, and I will also put the Picasa thread link and the iBoats thread link and the Boat Design Forums thread link onto this YouTube page. So while you're watching these videos, you can also click through and look at details. The pictures are maybe a little bit better than the video, but in any case, between all of those sources, this has been a pretty well documented project. So all I'm going to do today, if I can, don't know if I can or not, I'm just going to take my, just my random orbit sander, sand down the level of, there's some epoxy that's squeezed out there, sand that down and really assess the how flush that is with the hull. And then it's time to start thinking about the hole that I'm going to drill. In fact, I am going to drill a hole, maybe a half-inch hole right in the center of this thing. I do have to locate the center of the ship, boat, whatever. I'm going to drill a hole right through the center of this thing to find out what the final thickness between this and the inside of the transom is, because I got a feeling I'm already over 2 1/4, or at least I'm at 2 1/4. If that's the case, and I'm pretty sure that is the case, that's going to be no big deal, because all I'm going to do then is take my router around the inside, which is still not covered in fiberglass yet. Just take my router on the inside and just route off a 1/16 of an inch, and that'll just have to do. But anyway, that's a project for, continuing later on. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.